All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. It is 10 o'clock in the central time zone here in the United States. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of those of you who are joining us from around the world. Thank you so very much. We're going to give everybody a minute or two to log in before we get started. Hope everybody is having a good start to their new year. As always, if you'd like to share with us where in the world you are today, you may do so in the chat. We always love to see that. But otherwise, we'll give everybody a few minutes and we'll turn the microphone over to Charlie for his presentation. Hi, Alberto. Good morning from Monterrey, Mexico. Thanks for joining us. Brian Keegan, nice to see you. I know where you are.
Monterrey, Mexico is a good place to start.
Yep.
Welcome.
Juan, nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining us from Toronto. Lynn from Montreal, one of my favorite cities. Thank you so much. Like I said, we'll give everybody one more minute. I don't even know if you guys can see me. If you do, hopefully you can see my my virtual background with our Mardi Gras beads. For those of you who don't know, Align is headquartered in New Orleans, Louisiana. It is currently carnival season. As a matter of fact, we start deep gras today because we will have parades rolling in the city of New Orleans today through Fat Tuesday of next week. So the real celebration and parades associated with Mardi Gras begin in earnest today. So hopefully spreading a little bit of that carnival spirit with you all through my virtual background. If any of you have ever been to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, you know what I'm talking about. Or if you're anywhere in the world that celebrates its own version of carnival, it's a wonderful time of the year. So, all right, why don't we go ahead and get started? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eugene Turk. I'm the VP of Business Development at Align, and I want to welcome you to our monthly coach webinar for February 2023. Hope everyone is doing well, and thank you again for joining us today. This morning, we are thrilled to have Charlie Janes with a presentation on the 8 factors that impact business value and transferability. For those of you who may not be familiar with Charlie, he is CEO of Agile Customer Engagement and is a certified focal point business growth coach. I'm stealing Charlie's thunder a little bit by giving you some of his background, which I know he's about to share with you. But prior to becoming a coach, Charlie helped scale 3 different organizations from the ground up to the $100+ million revenue plateau and sold one of those businesses for over $300 million. Over the last 10 years, he's helped 7 different startups define a very unique market niche, develop an initial product, and acquire their first customers. Charlie's mission is to strengthen communities through meaningful job creation and business growth. In addition to being a coach, he still owns a fast-growing adult home care business that he and his wife scaled from 1 employee to over 120 employees in 14 months. We're honored to have Charlie present for us this month. Thank you, Charlie, as always. One administrative matter, we want this to be as educational and informational for all of you as possible. So please feel free to pose questions using the chat feature, and we will direct them to Charlie at the conclusion of the presentation. So again, thank you all for joining us this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, and I will now turn the microphone over to Charlie.
Eugene, I wish you would just keep going. I could listen to you talk about me forever. Hey, everybody. As Eugene says, I'm Charlie Janes. I work with business owners to visualize and achieve better outcomes. On this cover page, I purposely put my website QR code so you can just take a picture of this and have my contact points. As we go through today, I'm going to be mentioning resources from me and from other coaches. Anything that sounds interesting to you, you're welcome to just send me a quick note and I'll send you what I have. So I hope you have fun today. Let's get going, and happy Mardi Gras. So my business is to work with business owners that really want three things: to accelerate revenue growth. And in the last year, I'm working currently with about 15 clients. My clients have grown between 33 and 700% last year. No company didn't grow. Usually, the main thing that they want to focus on is building their team and their systems for automation and for scaling. More and more, my clients starting to think about, especially the baby boomers, what an eventual exit looks like. And they want to do all this knowing that they'll be covered financially, living a good life in terms of their hobbies, their vacations, and their health. And more, they use the word legacy. And that's really how I got into the exit planning part of this business. So I think Eugene did a great job of introducing my background. And the only reason why I put it in there is so that you know that you're not just dealing with another crazy uncle. When I work with business owners, they like the fact that I've got this type of experience so that when they give me answers to questions, I know what the answers mean. That's really all this experience means. But I don't advise, and a good coach doesn't tell you what they did. We base our coaching on methods. So I heavily use foundational processes for scaling businesses, EOS and scaling up, which was the basis for Align today, are used by tens of thousands of highly scalable businesses. And they're based on the principles and the learnings of John Rockefeller and Carnegie and some of the greatest entrepreneurs this world has ever seen. And then I've also recently added in certifications from the Exit Planning Institute, as well as Value Builder. And a lot of the content today will come from a third-party company called Value Builder, where I am a coach. Again, I'm going to encourage you, if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to chat, type them in. Eugene, if you see them, that would be great. I guess before I get any further, Eugene, I forgot to ask for the first survey. So would you mind just launching the first survey so that we know who's in the group and their area of interest? So if you guys would just you only have like 30 seconds for this. And then I'm going to ask one other question, and that'll help me zero in a little bit more.
Give everybody 10 more seconds if you haven't answered the poll yet, and we'll go ahead and close it, and we can share the results.
Wow. So 56% are thinking about selling in the next 5 years. And it's really good. The reason why I ask about 5 years is most people that come to coaches or business brokers or their CPA want to sell when they're already on the decline, when they're tired. And there's nothing that most of us can do to help you improve the transferability or the value at that point. So a lot of today is about the proactive things that you can do to be in the driver's seat to get the best possible results. Eugene, I'm going to go ahead and ask the next question now, if you could put the poll up. But if you're thinking about selling your business, what are your top 3 concerns?
We'll give everybody a little extra time since there are multiple options here that you can select.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of hard to sort through these. I'm always curious, though, to see what's on people's minds.
Give everybody about 10 more seconds. And we'll go ahead and end the poll and share the results.
So let's see here. It looks like, as I'm reading through this, the number one thing tied for first place is what happens to your employees, and then not surprisingly, being paid what it's worth. And we're gonna touch on these a little bit. But then the next biggest one is, will you have enough money to maintain or improve your current lifestyle? So we'll focus on those specific concerns today. So let's define a little bit more. Today's subject matter is 8 key things that impact the value of your business, the sale value, let's say, as well as your transferability. So in terms of defining that, I want to clarify there's 2 different types of businesses. There's lifestyle businesses and there's legacy businesses. Most of what we're going to talk about for today is those of you that have been running a successful, happy lifestyle business. It's fine. There's a lot that's relevant for you today, but this is mostly about turning that corner to build on to a business that will exist in some way after you step out of day-to-day operation of the business. So the first thing is how you build a business that grows. And what I mean by grow is grow profit and grow the value of the business. The great thing about the methodologies we're going to talk about today is they're not about selling your business as a standalone thing. So all the time I hear, I don't want to talk about exit yet. And, I'll contact you 5 years from now. Well, the nice thing that we're going to talk about is these are the foundational building blocks that help your business generate more money and profit now. But when you do want to transition, I want to be clear about the types of transitions that matter to owners. And these themselves aren't mutually exclusive. Most people think about a third-party sale, selling outright. But others, as we indicated here, people care about transferring the business to their actual employees, or at least key employees, family transitions, management buyouts. There's an option for those of you that want to get out of your business, or at least spend less time, to get an investor to come in either with a minority or a majority stake where you can continue to work and collect a salary is one of your options. And finally, an asset sales when you're just out of gas, the business isn't worth anything as an ongoing entity, and you just sell things off. So according to the Exit Planning Institute out of Cleveland, these are some of the major issues people that go to sell their business face. First off, you may not know, but only 20% of businesses that are put up for sale actually sell. This is particularly true of lifestyle businesses, and today we'll talk about why that is. But 80% of most business owners' estimated net worth, what they're counting on for that lifestyle, is tied up in the business. So you can see a direct disconnect there. If you've spent your whole life building a business and you're counting on a sale value, that if you're in the 80%, then what will you do? You're likely to be living a much more modest lifestyle. We're in the home care business, and that's one of the things we see every day is that people don't have money to pay for the care that they need late in life. Only 30% of businesses that are intended for family members transfer to the second generation, and only 18% transfer to the third generation. 70% of business owners that sell their business regret it within 6 months because they haven't made a plan of what they'll do with their time, and they lose their sense of purpose. But also, only 5% of people that sell businesses are happy with the price that they get. And price isn't even the main issue. It's really the exit terms. A lot of times when you go to sell a business, the new buyer will require you to stay on with them for a period of time. And if you're out of gas, that just doesn't work. So a lot to consider. All of these things impact the legacy, the money, the intergenerational wealth that spills down for your retirement, for your spouse if something should happen to you, or vice versa, to your children, your grandchildren, and certainly your employees and your community. So when you think about getting out of your business and getting as much money as you can, into your own pockets, it's a fairly simple plan. Generally, valuation is calculated on the type of revenue that you have and the perception of risk. And almost all the valuation methods out there factor in this into some formula. So in this case, in the blue box, I say grow the right kind of revenue, the right mix of clients, the right type of clients, the right mix of upfront revenue versus recurring revenue, and systematically address the things that are perceived as risk items for a potential buyer. Now, when we talk about a potential buyer, keep in mind that there are lifestyle buyers, people that just want a job. They don't pay big multiples. There are financial buyers who look at your business and say, hey, if I could add my resources, capital and otherwise, I could get a great return on investment and flip the business like people flip houses. And then there's strategic buyers. Strategic buyers see 1 + 1 = 5. And those are where great wealth comes from. So this is the big reveal. The 8 key drivers of value are financial performance, future growth potential, something I call the Switzerland structure, which means not having too much dependence on any one employee, any one customer, any one supplier. Your valuation teeter-totter, whether you're a cash suck or cash generator, recurring revenue, monopoly control, your reputation, and hub and spoke management. And we'll cover this in the rest of the session. But first, a little bit on the methodology that I use. So I use something called Value Builder. I'm a certified Value Builder coach, as well as a focal point coach. In a survey of 55,000 businesses that have sold, the Value Builder has figured out that an average Value Builder score, when you take a survey with us, an average multiple that gets generated is 3.5. That's generally across all industries. So your industry will be normalized for that. But if you can move your performance to the 90th percentile, you will get a 7.1 or more than double of the multiple value. But it's even better because you will get 3 times as many written offers. And a lot of times those are unsolicited written offers. So even when those people say, hey, I'm not planning on selling my business in 5 years, 1, you're generating more money anyhow. And 2, there's these 5 Ds that come up: death, disability, divorce, disagreement with a partner, and disaster. So the idea with this methodology is that you're always ready on a 90-day notice to gather your team of professionals, your financial consultant, your CPA. You have your books ready to go. Especially if you get one offer from somebody, you want to shop it to another list of potential buyers so that they're bidding rather than you're trying to convince them to buy your business. So a lot to consider here with the methodology. Now let's talk a little bit about mindset, and then we'll get back to the 8 major drivers. There's a manager's mindset versus an owner's mindset. The manager mindset is how we all came up as managers when we worked in businesses. We were asked to take care of departments, maybe a sales department in my case, where I had metrics for the number of sales calls or amount of revenue. But typically the manager's working within the business. And they'll focus on things like the sales revenue number, this total expenses, income before taxes. That's not a bad thing at all. But that's kind of an inward looking view. So when we talk about the value builder methodology or having an owner's mindset, we're looking at a broader set of ingredients, a bigger purpose for what the business fulfills in terms of its mission statement within its community and to potential partners and acquirers. And really, the special sauce comes down to these 4 intangible capital groups: human capital, the quality and orientation of your people; customer capital; structural capital, that's your intellectual property, that's your processes, your automations; and then your social capital, your reputation, your with customers and with your employees. And we'll cover that in greater detail now. But really, if you want to look at how valuations happen, let's give you an example for those of you that haven't put a business up for sale or haven't bought one. Value is typically your profit on a 3-year average calculated times something called a multiple. So in this illustration, there's a business owner that's generating $800,000 in profit, and he's an average performer and value builder. So he's going to get a 3.5 times multiple, which means his business value, he'll likely sell the business for something like 2.8 million, but then there will be expenses that will come out the bottom. So that probably won't be a net number. But if you could improve, and with what we're talking about here, pulling these 8 levers and some of the other ingredients within those 8 levers, you're generally going to have more profit coming out through your sales, through your organization, and you're going to squeeze out $100,000 more. So that $100,000 more will generate times that multiple 3.1 million. But now imagine doing both at the same time, improving your multiple. So in this case, by improving your performance across these 8 measures that we'll talk about today, you get more than twice the multiplier value. In this case, the system calculates a 7.1 multiple, and that generates a valuation of $5.6 million. But then when you say, oh, wait a minute, at the same time, I've increased my profit, that generates 6.3 million. So that is, that's a huge jump up from 2.8 million. And that's what we're here to talk about. Increasing the value, the profit coming through, the value you can sell the business, and the number of options you have when you want to sell. Remembering again that only 20% of businesses sell, how important is it to increase your odds significantly? All right. So these are the drivers of company value, and we've already talked about financial performance. The only other thing I want to add to financial performance is the quality of your accounting, and the sophistication of your accounting is super important. And you really want to have those nailed down 3 years ahead of time. So that's one of the reasons why we say, if you're thinking about selling your business, this might be time to upgrade your accountant. A lot of CPAs help you. Most accounting is oriented towards mitigating taxes, which is completely fine. But when we sell your business, we recast those earnings. So they're going to be normalized. So if you underpay yourself so that you're keeping more money in the business, so you're not paying tax on it, that's fine. But if a new owner is going to have to bring in a manager to run the business, and they're going to pay that person more than you, then they're going to adjust your net profit downward to reflect, during this recasting idea, that the business without you will actually generate a lower profit in that scenario. But usually it's the other way around. The business will generate without the owner quite a bit more profit, so the profitability goes up. So that's just a word on financial planning and the need to have the right accountant who can justify the quality of your earnings. And I'll explain that as we go along a little bit more. Monopoly control. Investors from Warren Buffett on down look for companies with deep differentiation. That's really what Berkshire Hathaway buys. Moats that keep competitors from just copying what they do, which would cause downward pricing on the company's product and therefore downward pricing on profits. So when young companies first attempt to scale, especially owners and lifestyle businesses, sometimes they do what seems natural is they add new products or services so that they can sell more things to their existing clients. Doesn't sound like a bad strategy, but if you're not specializing in anything, the thing you have to remember is there's always competitors that come after you, especially as you start accumulating size as a business. So if you're not better at what you do than they are, then you may find yourself losing business or having downward price pressure. So that's why with monopoly control, we sometimes say focus on doing fewer things for more customers, and you'll therefore be more valuable to a buyer. And then likewise, if you're doing fewer things, your cost structure is more efficient, so you can do things at a lower cost and pass through more profit. The second area is the Switzerland structure. So basically what we like to do with this methodology is we like to just take a quick look at how dependent you are on any one employee and whether you have employment contracts set up with them, whether you maybe even have some employee stock ownership plans that tie key employees to the company after you've gone. Same with suppliers. If you can easily substitute new suppliers for your existing suppliers, that a new buyer of your company isn't at risk if there's a supply chain disruption, which is what COVID was all about in our business world, it has a huge impact on the valuation of your business. And the same with customers, is you don't want to be overly dependent in a customer concentration. The rule of thumb typically is you were looking for, you don't want your biggest client to be bigger than 15% of your business. And even if that number is even smaller, that's better. So I don't advise my clients to cut down their biggest client. I advise them to try to build a couple of their next biggest clients up to that level and just keep growing that way while sucking in a bunch of newer customers and becoming a volume business. I'm skipping the valuation teeter-totter, but it's somewhat self-obvious. The best businesses figure out ways of delaying their payments or their cash going out, maybe consolidating everything to one credit card, one payment date, end of the month with favorable terms, maybe 45 days out. But I always have my clients set up their payments so that they're getting paid for their product or services right up front. Usually with automatic cash transfers, so that you've actually got that cash in your bank account. And more sophisticated businesses actually invest that money and make money off of that float during that time frame. That little bit contributes to the attractiveness of your company. Hub and spoke. I can't tell you how many times I've met a proud business owner. It's usually a lifestyle business owner that doesn't know he's a lifestyle business owner, that takes pride in knowing every one of his clients, that is just right there anytime anything happens. It sounds really, really great. It sounds great for reputation building, but here's some more information on it. The average multiple, let's say for a client where the based on the average multiple for an owner is 3.76. If I know each of my customers by first name, that scenario where I'm in the business and I know all my clients, your multiple actually decreases to 2.92. And then this is how it scales up. So this is an example of a value builder question that you would be asked, is to rate yourself on how well you know your clients. And counterintuitively, if you don't know most of your clients personally and you have automated systems handling the orders, or you have a combination of people who are interchangeable handling it, the multiple of your business goes up substantially. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Anything that doesn't make sense, that requires clarification, go ahead and raise your hand. We're right on pace. We'll end with about 10 minutes for question. So Signs that you're in the owner's trap. The owner is the primary salesperson. You offer too many products or services. Only the owner can deliver most of the services or the product themselves, like a carpenter, and that the owner interfaces with the customer. So basically, what you'll see is that your business will slow when the owner is away. The customers go to the owners when something goes wrong and revenue plateaus happen. So this happens in our home care business. When we started it 2 years ago, our customer, we sold everything. We sold every engagement. And anytime a caregiver didn't show up, we were the only ones to handle it. But now we've got a staff of 4 besides my wife who runs the business. And we're getting so she can now step away over the weekends. But the acid test for our business is when she can be gone for 3 months at a time. And this is advice I give my clients. Don't pat yourself on the back when you can take a vacation. The real acid test for most businesses is that you'll have a lieutenant, or what we call in the EOS methodology is an integrator, who will be running the business very effectively while you're away. That day-to-day running also involves, when you are working, enables the owner to be thinking strategically up and out, working with the most important partners, the most important customers, thinking about the next market or the next solution or innovative ways to automate the business more fully, things that the lifestyle business owner just doesn't have a chance to do. So the secret to improving a hub and spoke model, and you notice that we're giving a lot of attention to this. This is the number one thing that's going to move the needle on the saleability or transferability of your business. A business that's only you is not likely to be sold to somebody else unless you're willing to stay with the business. So before you sell, before you make these changes, you're selling lots of things to a few customers, but afterwards you're selling one thing to lots of customers. Now, in reality, I'm not saying you really can't expand and sell multiple things, but you want to, as you're scaling, you want to get that one thing really well, and you want to make sure that your quality or your competitive advantage doesn't diminish as you add on complementary things. So the other thing is the customer score. And this is one of my real favorites, especially using Align. When I implement Align, those of you that are familiar with Align, on the company dashboard, the top dash that everybody sees, everybody in the company sees, I usually have a net promoter score. And a lot of times it's just to build a better culture. It's to get everybody in the company thinking about something rather than the internal pressure. Oh, we've got to make more money, more sales, more revenue. Getting them to remember that the way you make more revenue and more profit is by delighting your customers. So having some form of a customer score is super important. I want to introduce you to Fred Reich. I don't know if I know how to pronounce his name, Reichheld from Bain Consulting, but he's one of the world's premier consultants. And he studied a lot of the world's leading companies, Fortune 500 companies, and he created a standard measure to benchmark companies, their customers' willingness to tell that company how likely they are to continue to do business with that company, or to recommend that company to somebody else. So there's actually a book written called, I think it's the One Question That Matters. And it's what we call a net promoter score. And I'm going to explain to you briefly how this works. But what's beautiful about it is it's super simple to implement, and you can usually implement it with something free like Google surveys. Again, if you have any trouble figuring out how to do this, this is an area where you can reach out to me and I'll talk you through it really quick, just as a service, one business owner to another service owner, because you might notice I'm pretty passionate about it. I'm enthusiastic, as they used to say. So this is how you calculate a net promoter score. your number of promoters. These are people that if and you've seen these before, when you do business on Amazon, when you do business on the website, and you get a scale of 1 to 10, and they ask you to rate their service. If you give them a 9 or a 10, that means you're a promoter. That means more than likely you're happy enough that they can mathematically predict that you're going to come back, that you have some preference for doing business through that service or for that product specifically. So in this case, if 25% of, let's say, 10 people said they're a promoter, that would be 2.5. If they're passive, if they're saying they're somewhere between 7 or 8, that's there's no indication of what they're going to do. They could go either way. But if they're detractors, anywhere between a score of 0 and 6, these are people who will recommend to others not to buy your product. They're actually negative. So the way you having trouble speaking today, as you can tell, the way you calculate the net promoter score is you don't worry about the 70%. You cross that out, and then you subtract the 5% from the 20%, and your net promoter score will be 20%. Now, a lot of the industry leading companies aim for 50%, but in reality, industry averages really vary all over the map about what a good net promoter score is. So a lot of times I just Google online, and some of the net promoter score software companies have guides that will give you an idea by industry type of retail, transportation, manufacturing, and so forth. And you can get a better sense of what a good benchmark is. But typically, the default within Value Builder is a 50%. Nice part about Value Builder, though, is that as a coach or as a customer, Value Builder is actually a user. It's a SaaS platform that's accessible by my clients. We can adjust and fine tune these models to be relevant specifically for your business. So again, we get a really high degree of accuracy. So that's a little bit on the idea of the net promoter score. But getting back, remember we talked about the 4 capitals. So this is social capital. Your reputation with your customers, your reputation with your employees, your reputation, your brand quality has a huge impact on whether a buyer will pay a premium for your business. The next thing is your growth potential. Make sure that you have gas left in the tank. A lot of times owners have gotten a very heavy penetration into their local market, especially if it's a lifestyle business. You have to think from the potential of a buyer, why they would want to buy that business. Now, if there's repeat business and there's something unique that you could sell your business to a new owner and they would continue to buy, maybe someone will buy your business, but generally that's not particularly inviting, and it's certainly not going to attract a financial buyer or a strategic buyer. So generally what we want to look for are ways to demonstrate that you have lots and lots of other growth potential. Untapped market in terms of number of businesses or clients. It could be add-on potential of complementary products and services. And certainly the big one is the rocket fuel, is when your product or service or your geographic coverage, or even sometimes if you're a services company, say you have a bunch of accountants or a bunch of software developers, a much bigger company will acquire your company at a higher multiple because they need really quickly to add in your expertise for that organization. And as we said before, 1 + 1 maybe equals 7, and therefore you get a great multiple. Let's illustrate that. So one of the questions that I ask is, how easy would it be to accommodate 5 times demand? Magically, a new head of sales comes in, or gosh, in the case of COVID, people were, at home, and there were some markets dried up and some just exploded. But the nature of some businesses that were real brick and mortar, they weren't immediately able to adapt their delivery style or accommodate the customers. So if an average multiple is 3.76 and you answered it would be impossible to accommodate a 5 times increase in demand, your multiple would actually go down to 2.97. But if you increasingly improve that all the way up to very easy, here's an illustration where your multiple will increase to 4.56. I want to further illustrate this. Meet Rod, my good friend Rod. He sold a company that had annual revenues of $2 million for a staggering $35 million. So he founded a company called Aftermail in 2004. They provided a better way for companies to store old emails. He went out and he sold 2 contracts to 2 Fortune 500 companies, which generated the $2 million. Now, typically we want to have more than 2 big clients, but in his case, he didn't look for more companies to sell to. Instead, he went to look for he went to the leader in the industry, a company called Quest. Quest was a software reseller of sorts. They had lots of relationships with all kinds of Fortune 500 companies. And he basically built the case that if you, with your coverage and all of your sales infrastructure, had this product, you'll make hundreds of millions of dollars. And they agreed. And that's why they agreed to pay him $35 million, even though he only had 2 clients. Your mileage may vary, but I sure hope it happens for you. So the final thing I want to talk about is recurring revenue. Most of us think about software companies with recurring revenue, but there's a major trend in industry right now. In Sweden, Volvo is starting to sell not cars, but uptime for their cars. GE Aircraft doesn't sell aircraft engines as much as they used to a plane manufacturer. Instead of selling that, they sell uptime, flight time. And instead of it just being for the physical running of the aircraft engine, they provide the maintenance services so that the aircraft or company doesn't have to do that. They don't have to have their own people. Further, GE developed an analytics company that has these capabilities, because the more they can make an engine run at a lower cost, the more that profit comes to them. So GE's aircraft engine makes increased profitability, not selling the engine up front, but selling it on a recurring basis. This has the added benefits for them in terms of planning, being able to look out for the life cycle of a plane and know that that aircraft engine is going to be there, that revenue is going to be there quarter after quarter after quarter, rather than having the ups and downs when you go through these cyclical things where an aircraft manufacturer stops making aircraft engines. Now, there's some trade-offs with going from the big upfront adrenaline jolt of selling something that cost, let's say, $100, to selling a subscription to that might be something like 3 to 4, 1/3 or 1/4 of that amount, where your break-even point is maybe 2, 3, or 4 years out. Still, you get the recurring revenue, and that's highly attractive to acquiring companies. So even with construction companies, with an electrician company I'm working with now, with a design services company, certainly with the software companies I work with, we spend a lot of time figuring out what percentage of revenue we can get to recurring, and therefore we get a much higher multiple. So meet Mr. Panda and Mr. Burkhart, co-founders of a company called H Bloom, a flower selling business. They decided to reimagine their business. So people usually spend money flowers for a special occasion, a kind of a one-time thing. And it turns out the average customer, they figured out, spends flowers like $29. But with a subscription customer, when you develop the right type of a customer, like a hotel that's buying flowers over and over again, that $29 sale one time can become $4,000 over the course of the year. But it's better than that. When you have uneven demand based on birthdays and things like that, turns out 60% of their inventory they threw away. By converting to a subscription model, they were able to slash their cost to almost no obsolescence because they're able to forecast the demand as they go along. So that's an illustration of turning a perishable, traditional brick and mortar business into a subscription model. And I'd love to talk to you about other ideas. This stuff just fascinates me. So I'm going to go ahead and move a little more quickly so that we have some questions. So in summary, 8 things every business owner should know. Industry and revenue are important, but they're not the only things. They're the things managers think about, and certainly owners think about them, but owners have to think about a lot more, like the 4 capitals. Focus on selling less stuff to more people, generally. Reduce reliance on single clients where you can. Reduce your reliance on a single employee where you can, and always have employment contracts well in place long before you want to put your company up for sale. Reduce your reliance on a single supplier. Supply contracts are also super important, but you do want to, where you can, you want to have a mix of suppliers. Focus on a 50% net promoter score, or at least one that makes sense for your industry. Leave some field enough to plow, have growth potential, and create a recurring revenue stream wherever you can. So if you're a lifestyle business owner or a legacy business owner, you've built your successful business. It's great being in business for yourself. I didn't tell you my story of working in Silicon Valley and growing companies. We said we grew them from 0 to 100 million, and I grew 3 startups from 0 to 5 million, but I still got laid off or fired 7 times. It's the nature of working for somewhere else, having new investors coming in, selling companies, mergers and acquisitions. You're not your own boss. You look at this couple here and they're going off into their sunset to live the life that they want. Hopefully they're much wealthier, having run their own business. But we want to talk about how you're going to convert as much of that personal wealth, business wealth, into your financial wealth. And that's really what we're talking about with the Value Builder system. I'm going to give a shameless plug. I'm running an easy way to get started. If you want to learn a lot of these principles through my focal point curriculum, every quarter I do a group masterclass on how to scale a business, hopefully a business that moves from lifestyle towards legacy. The next one is starting April 5th. It'll be 11:30 to 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. I typically have 10 to 20 business owners. They're really fun. We send coaching exercises out ahead of time. There's worksheets on how to do things like target your ideal client, how to focus in on their problem statements so that you can charge more for your solutions. But it's in a group workshop. And what I have loved about it is that a lot of times the owners form ongoing relationships after I'm out of the picture. But this is the simplest, easiest way to get started. And it's less than $1,000 for the 8-week class. So if you want to sign up, you can just take that QR code. But the other offer, absolutely free, which is a great price, for any Align Today client that attends us today, I'm making an offer to actually give you a sample of a business valuation. You'll fill out, using the QR code here, a questionnaire. Will take you about 13 minutes, but it's the kind of questions you saw today. But you'd also fill in your your EBITDA or your profits for 3 years, and that'll generate an estimated value in a bell curve. And that bell curve would be what we think you could sell your business for now, and it'll probably be somewhere around a 2 to 4 multiple. And then it will show you of if you make some changes, and the slider bars here are actually the area of the business where you're vulnerable based on your answers. So you'll actually have an idea of things that you can focus in on your business. And I'd love just to talk to you about it and give you a couple ideas. That way we start building relationships and I'm helpful and make new friends, and you get some ideas and maybe introductions to other professionals that can help you. So please take me up on that offer. You can reach me at these contact points as well. So Eugene, I'm going to turn it back open to you now for questions.
Thank you so very much, Charlie. Thanks for a great presentation. I do have a question, and for those of you who are with us, please, if you do have questions, just pop them into the chat. Obviously, one of the biggest questions is, when is the best time to sell? There's a lot of articles right now about the recession that's coming up. We've seen certainly headlines and articles about how there is a tightening of the capital markets, sort of the multiples that particularly SaaS businesses and other technology companies, the multiples that they were receiving, say in the year 2020, 2021, are no longer there. So, how does a business owner try to sort of identify the best time to sell their business, not only by increasing these drivers to increase that multiple, but just because the market is the right time and welcoming opportunities for business owners to, exit and move on to their next adventure?
Thank you, Eugene. Awesome question. There is no great answer. Nobody knows the future. So let me talk about a framework. There's 3 things to consider. There's the owner's readiness, where you're at with your business and your energy level. You don't want to wait until you're plateauing or declining. So you want to be looking out 2 or 3 years with energy. And remember, we said with growth potential in your business. So that's number 1. Number 2 is paying attention to your potential buyer base. And there's roughly a 5 to 7 year cycle that's driven actually by capital gains legislation and by interest rates that kind of drives when people flock to markets to buy. So right now, interest rates are going up. So the amount of capital for buying business is going down. So we're transitioning right now from one of the longest sellers markets we've had, where businesses are paying a premium, especially financial companies are paying a premium because they don't have anything else to do with their money. Now they're starting to say, okay, I'm going to be much more selective with my investments. So they're out buying fewer businesses. So there's more competition from buyers that want to find things. So that's kind of the bad news. And frankly, a lot of people believe the next cycle we're going to be in for about 10 more years. Why? Because the unusual demographics of so many baby boomers putting their business up. So there's a lot more businesses. So with more businesses on the market, there's more choice for buyers, which drives prices down. And then capital gains legislation is another thing in terms of what you can do with your money once you sell it. So that also has an impact on it.
Another question that I had is sort of, as a business owner, when you are potentially selling the business, or maybe even you have a potential buyer, sort of how to manage the communication of that with your employees. Obviously, one of the responses in the survey was, I want to make sure that my employees are taken care of once I exit out of the business. And so as a leader and somebody who feels, very responsible for that employee workforce, what are some suggestions on ways to sort of communicate with those employees that there may be a potential exit coming and the impact that may have on them?
Well, aren't you Mr. Tough Question Asker today?
Sorry, just
No,
probing questions.
no, yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Again, it's hard because you think about the business owner that's tired and desperate. The last thing he wants she wants is her employees to start panicking when all of a sudden the business goes on the market. So the best scenario is to build a culture where you're developing your employees and you're building a legacy company that you telegraph is going to live on after you're gone. Because without, all of us are going to move on at some point in our lives. So if you're in the luxury of building a legacy business that's going to live on, you're continuously preparing your employees. One path that some of my clients, prepare for are management buyouts, where some of the managers will buy and there will be continuity, or where there will be an employee stock ownership plans, or a lot of the times there's an agreement where we're actively looking to attract the right type of companies and we're looking for that timing. And right now I've got 5 owners that have turned down offers from companies that would just decimate the company. They're looking for an owner that isn't financially driven of driving down costs as much as that wants to just grow sales and continue to be an employer in a community. So you can orchestrate or telegraph your intention through your culture, but you can't just do that right when you wake up one morning and say you want to sell it. It needs to be a cultural touch point.
Sounds great. All right, we are reaching the end of the hour. If anybody has any last questions that they'd like to pose to Charlie, please do so now. Otherwise, we'll give you a few minutes back. I do want to thank everybody for attending this morning's coach webinar. A huge thank you to Charlie for a great presentation. You saw his contact information should you wish to learn more. As a matter of fact, when you leave this webinar, there'll be a short questionnaire where you can indicate how effective and how beneficial and informative this webinar was, and you can provide information should you wish Charlie to get in touch with Charlie as well. As always, we encourage you to use the Align software to implement some of this stuff. Obviously, we do an ENPS within the software, just as important as it is to understand your customer engagement and customer satisfaction score. When you're building your internal culture within the organization, it is equally important to know your employee net promoter score. So essentially, that is applying that same methodology that Charlie went over to your customers, applying that also to your employees and getting them to tell you, are they promoters of your business in your culture, or are they detractors, and do you have perhaps some culture issues within the organization? Anyway, if you ever need assistance or more information, please be sure to reach out to us. You can email us at support@aligntoday.com. Thanks again to everybody. Yes, the video will be shared. Rory, do not worry about that. It has been recorded and will be distributed to everybody who signed up for it. Otherwise, we hope that you will join us for our next coach webinar. And until then, have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much, Charlie.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.